All right, guys, here it is. I finally broke down and I bought a mulcher. So please stop bugging me about it now. Well, I guess everyone's gonna say, well, you need one for the skid steer now. So yeah, that'll be next on the list, hopefully. So this is a Prinoth M450e-900. actually it's the 900 model, which is, if I'm remember correctly, is this width right here, which is 900 millimeters. They make this in another size. I think it's the 1090 or 1100, which is a little bit bigger for a little bit bigger class machine. But this is it. Walk you guys around it. It is big. I'll kind of back up just to give you guys a comparison of how big the machine is to that mulcher. But yeah, it looks like you should pronounce this Prinoth. It's P-R-I-N-O-T-H, but it's actually Prinoth. This is an Italian company, and they bought a company called Owie in 2016. They merged with, they had like a joint partnership in like 2011, and then in like 2016, I guess they bought them. And Owie made mulchers. Prinoth actually makes, what they started making was snow groomers. They make these big groomers that go up and down the mountains in like the Alps and stuff like that, that grooms the snow and everything. And they bought Owie and started making mulchers, or basically took Owie and just rebranded them into Prinoth. And that's what this is. So they make these for the skid, or for the mini excavators, and they also make them for skid steers, and they also make dedicated units, the big track. They have these big track dedicated units, and that's kind of how they got going with the mulchers, because they already had these big tracked machines that were really good about going over rough ground or soft ground. And instead of having a big groomer on it, they said, well, why don't we just attach a mulcher? Well, they didn't know how to make mulchers, so I guess they went and got involved with Owie. So, or Owie, or however you pronounce it. So let's talk about this head. This is a very, very similar head to the Fecon FMX36. It's quite a bit different from the FAE head and also the Dennis Seamoff head. And I'm gonna tell you guys why I went with this head. So I'd made up my mind a while ago that after doing a bunch of research and all of this stuff and looking into all of this, that when it came time to buy a mulcher for the skid steer, I was gonna buy a Prinoth. And I'll get into that later, I guess. I'm not gonna bore you guys with why I was gonna do that. And I didn't want to go buy another different brand for the mini excavator, you know, because then I've got to go to possibly 2 different dealers. I've got to have 2 different service people. I'm dealing with 2 different companies. I'm dealing with 2 different types of teeth and mounting bolts and hookups and all kinds of stuff. I just didn't want anything to have to mess with that. So I decided if I was going to go with the Prinoth on my skid steer, I was going to go with it on the mini excavator. And I kind of took this on faith a little bit, because there's very little on YouTube with these heads. There's like a couple of videos. And as a matter of fact, there's only like 4 dealers in the entire United States that is like at least on Prinoth's website, that's registered as a legit Prinoth dealer. One of them just happened to be Richardson Service over in Conway, South Carolina, which is near where I am. So when it came time to, I got to the point where I was going to buy one of these things, I went over there, talked to him, and we got all this set up. Here's the other reason why I got this thing. A job came up out of the blue where I was going to need a mulching head. And at first I thought I was going to need a skid steer mulching head. And then after looking at the job and some things changed with it, we ended up deciding that the mulcher on the mini excavator was going to be a better option. Now I came really close to buying a Fecon FMX36, despite the fact that I had said that I wasn't gonna do that earlier just now. I came really close to buying one, but here's one of the big reasons I went with this head. You see these 2 lines right here, 1 and 2. There's only 2 of them. And that's really important, because on the Fecon heads, the Dennis Seamoff head, and the FAE head, which are like the 3 biggest ones out there, they run piston motors in these heads, which is great. Piston motors are awesome. It's what I have on the rotary cutters on the skid steer for the MTLs. Both the MTLs have piston motors. They're great motors, but they require a 3rd case drain line, a 3rd line that has to go back to the hydraulic tank on the machine of whatever's running it. What that is a pressure relief line that when the piston motor builds up too much pressure, that excess oil that's under pressure can be returned to the tank. This does not have a piston motor in it. It has a direct drive motor in it, which is the same type of motor that is in the MTL brush cutter that I have for this. So it only needs an inflow and an outflow line. It's a one-way deal, and the motor already has a pressure relief system built into it. The motor is right under here. That's kind of where we're at with this thing. I really like the Dennis Seamoth heads too. And here's what's weird. This thing weighs right at 1,000 pounds with this mount on it. And it's heavy. I mean, this machine knows it. As a matter of fact, if I swing all the way out to the side and I shake that boom really good, it'll tip this machine. And I can swing it out and just hold it out there and it won't tip. But if I move it a lot, you know, real violently or jerk it, it will tip. So it's heavy. This machine knows this thing is on here. And if you're looking at buying one of these things, the 5.5 ton is about the absolute lowest you want to go with one of these heads. A 5 ton, if you had a conventional tail swing, a 5 ton might handle it pretty good. Like if you had a Takeuchi TB250, that would work pretty good. Because I've seen the Fecon heads work on some 5 tons and it seems to work okay. And this head weighs, I think 100 pounds more than the Fecon head, which considering the amount of weight we're talking about isn't a whole lot. And this actually weighs the exact same amount as the Dennis Seamoth head, and that's kind of weird because this is 35 inches of working with. The Dennis Seamoth head only has 26 inches of working with. It's a little bit smaller width of a head, but it spins faster. At least the Dennis Seamoth claims that on their website. They hooked a tachometer and all the gauges and everything up to this thing and tested the flow and tuned it. This thing is spinning at full throttle. I'm getting dead on 2,000 RPM out of this, and these things top out at right at 2,500 RPM, depending on the type of motor you get in it. They have 3 different size cc direct drive motors that you can get depending on the machine and the flow. This one has a 39 cc motor. It's the middle one. You can go down as low as 30, and then I don't know what the highest one is. I'm guessing it's probably somewhere in the upper 40 range for the biggest one. So they put the 39 on here because they said that that's what they were running on their Sani 60s 6 tons, and that one runs out at 20 gallons a minute. So that's what they put in this thing. But they said, hey, kind of test it out, see what it does, and you know, if it needs the smaller motor, which would give me a little bit more speed, you know, we could reassess from there. So we're kind of like just testing this thing out a little bit, but I think this is going to work pretty good. Give you guys a little bit of a kind of an idea. If I went from like 2,000 RPM, so if you broke 2,000 RPM down to rotations per second, that's like 33 or 34 rotations per second. If I went up to like 2,300 RPM, you'd go up to like 39, I think, or something like that, rotations per second. So you wouldn't get a whole lot if you broke it down that way per second increase in speed. And another thing is, the faster you spin this, the faster that these teeth are going to engage the material. So you're going to cut faster, but you're also going to engage the material faster, which is going to slow the head down faster. So you'll cut faster, but the head's going to slow down faster. So more speed isn't necessarily always the best thing, but we'll play with it, see what it kind of does. We're trying to look for a good mix between speed and torque, because with the 39 cc motor in it, it's going to have a little more torque than the 30 cc. Maybe a little less speed, but you're going to get more torque. So we're going to see how this thing does. I have yet to use this thing. I went over there after they hooked it up and I helped the guy kind of tune it. We played around with the hydraulics on the little control dash in the thing and made sure everything was turned up. And we spun it up in there, and I can tell you, 2,000 RPMs looks pretty damn fast. I'm not gonna lie, it goes. But I have yet to cut anything with this thing. So we are about to christen thy mulcher head right now. I think that pine tree is gonna be victim numero uno. And then I'm gonna try to find a decent sized oak in here, because I wanna try this thing on an oak, because that's what the rotary cutter has the hardest time cutting. It cuts pines really well, but it struggles with the oaks. So I wanna see how this thing does. Last thing, I won't bore you guys any longer. These teeth. This head can run carbides or these chipper style, they're like paddle teeth. But they told me on this head, because it just doesn't generate enough like the power, you're not going to want to need carbides. Plus the way you're cutting, you're not really getting into the ground too much with this, so you won't really want carbides. You do have these two carbides here on the edge. I think there's one there, and then there's another one there. Getting grease all over me. And so unlike like the Denisemov head teeth, where you, and a lot of the other teeth where you sharpen these from the top, you actually sharpen these from the bottom. They're very easy to sharpen. You just touch the bottom of this right here, and that's it. That's all you got to do. It's a very easy process. And then to take the teeth off, you got two bolts right here. Drop those off, and the tooth comes right on out. And then you've got these bite limiters, which are like your rings here, that work basically just like a raker gauge on a chainsaw to keep this tooth from taking too much of a bite, and keeps your head spinning and cutting more efficiently. So that's that. It's pretty cool little deal here. This thing looks gnarly when you kind of see it like that and spin it. So, oh man, I'm excited. But maybe this thing doesn't work. I don't know, you know. So we're gonna find out, and this thing's either going to be awesome and it's going to be a game changer for me as far as doing work, or it could fail and I might have to go back to square one. I don't know. I'm thinking about, depending on how the machine handles it as I start using it, I'm thinking about maybe adding, like stripping this paint off of here possibly, and having a welder weld me on a couple extra 100 pounds of counterweight back here, and then having this sprayed in Line-X and black it out. I think that would look really cool. Well, time will tell on that. It's not something I got to do tomorrow. This thing handles this thing pretty well over the blade. So, but that is, if I have problems with this thing being unstable, I can add, I think, an extra 300 pounds to the back and be good back there and give me a little bit more stability. So, and not increase my spacing, you know, the tail out over the tracks a whole lot. So, all right, let's fire this thing up and see what it do. oh, that was so freaking cool. Oh my gosh, that was a big pine too. That wasn't no little pine. Dude, it went through that thing like it was nothing. And the recovery speed was, I mean, I bogged it down pretty good there towards the bottom, and it spun right back up pretty quick. Wow. Oh, oh man. All right, we got to find a live oak. Got to find one of these little stringy live oaks to take down now. Let's go do this. Holy freaking moly, guys. This thing is a wow. I'm a little shocked. I've never run a mulcher before that's on anything. And Kelly's like, take down this pine. And I'm gonna show you guys, man, this pine at the bottom, I don't have a tape measure with me, but that's my hand, and that's the edge of it right there. That's probably 8 inches or so, 8-9 inches, and it went through that thing like it was nothing. I mean, it just, and I didn't want to mulch this stuff up too much and engage the ground too much and wear my teeth down. I just kind of chopped up what was here. But wow, everybody's all about piston motors, but man, this direct drive in this thing has got some juice, son. And this thing's only running 20 gallons a minute. I mean, you know, you get into the Takeuchi, the 260 runs 27 gallons a minute. The Deere 60G runs 24 gallons a minute. I think the Cat 306, the new 306 runs around 24 gallons a minute. So that's only with 20 gallons a minute and a 39cc motor. So I'm super impressed with this thing just from what I've done so far. I couldn't find an oak in here that we wanted to take down, but I've got several jobs already lined up for this thing. As a matter of fact, in the process of buying it, I went and looked at a pond cutting job, and it's like 2,000 lineal feet of pond we're gonna have to cut. I'm gonna need the rotary head for about 70% of it. A lot of it's just briars and just junk, you know, light brushy junk. But the other 30% of it is straight like big gums and oaks and wax myrtles and stuff like that, where I'm gonna have to have this thing. So I'm really excited about that. And then we've got another cleaning, like about a 3/4 acre job that we've got to clean up. I'm gonna be starting that tomorrow with this thing, so you guys are gonna see a ton of footage of this thing, get all my thoughts on it, and you know, as I run it and work it, I'll figure it out and likes and dislikes. But as of right now, this thing works. It eats it's made to eat trees, and I've just shown that it freaking does that. Oh man, does it do that. And I was running this thing wide open, full throttle. I could probably turn it down a little bit if I wanted to, but it works. I'm just super stoked with this thing right now. It's heavy. This machine is, it's heavy. The machine knows it's there, but it works. It works. And I'll work around the issues with stability like that. I can work around that. But, you know, as far as me being able to take down bigger material that the rotary head can't handle, this baby can do it. And man, I'm just, oh man. So really super excited to be using this thing and being someone that's being kind of the first person on YouTube really to be using one of these things, you know, and giving everybody their thoughts on it, because there's nobody really on there that's doing this with this head. So I'm really excited about that, to kind of be the first and do that. So you guys are going to be seeing a lot of this thing. And I'm not going to tell you guys exactly how much I paid for this, but I'm going to tell you something. These things are not cheap, and this is, you know, what took me so long in buying. I mean, this was an investment. I paid for this thing with the taxes and the setup fee and everything, almost, and it was pretty close, within a few $1,000s of what I paid in entirety for the John Deere 329E skid steer that I have. This little head right here, this 36 inches of metal and a pump and some hoses and stuff and a couple of bearings, that thing brand new was just almost as much as what I paid in entirety for an entire 85 horsepower 11,000 pound skid steer. So just to give you an idea of the cost and the investment for this. So, but I've got work lined up for it, and so I'm gonna get back most of that, I think, as long as those jobs go well and this thing performs. It's going to be definitely a blessing, I think, for the company and for the channel, for you guys. You guys get to see me mulch down and eat down and chew up all kinds of good stuff now. And this thing does it. It's very quiet. It's very quiet, and it doesn't have that screeching, you know, noise like the other one does. So it's kind of be a little more enjoyable to watch and listen to as I eat stuff down. So I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited. We're gonna have some fun with this thing. Oh man, I appreciate everybody watching. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been a big part of this, you know, my success on YouTube and my success with my company and everything. So I really appreciate all you guys watching, the comments and everything, and all the support. You guys have been awesome. I you know, God willing, I'm gonna keep making videos and keep cutting up brush and chewing things up and digging holes and doing what I do, and and you guys have been a big part of that, so I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So I'll check you guys later.